from page 30 of your student guide. We are focusing on the first 3 learning intentions in this PowerPoint. So by the end of the PowerPoint, you should be able to identify what is meant by the term metabolic pathway, compare anabolic and catabolic reactions, and state how metabolic pathways are controlled. Cell metabolism is the collective term for the thousands of biochemical reactions that occur within a living cell. The vast majority of these are steps in a complex network of connected and integrated pathways that are catalysed by enzymes. At National 5, we talked about simple enzyme-controlled reactions, that one enzyme acts on one substrate and produces a product. At higher, what we see is that we do indeed start with a substrate, that an enzyme acts upon that substrate, but what we find is that the product from that reaction becomes a substrate for the next enzyme in that metabolic pathway. So this is where we see that these reactions of what we call cell metabolism are indeed connected pathways and integrated pathways. They don't stand alone. These reactions tend to coincide with other reactions and are dependent on them. Metabolic pathways are integrated and controlled pathways of enzyme catalysed reactions within a cell. If I draw your attention to the diagram, what you see is that these enzymes now do not act alone, they act within a pathway. So when we start at the top of this diagram and we have a substance that is acted upon by enzyme 1, the product of that reaction becomes a substrate for the next enzyme in the pathway. So it's almost like a kind of domino effect, that you start one off and then all of the enzymes are able to act in sequence because of this pathway, because of the fact that they are integrated and connected to each other. Metabolic pathways are regulated by enzymes that catalyse specific reactions. A pathway often contains both reversible and irreversible steps, which allow the process to be kept under precise control. If we look at the example on the screen, we have highlighted in red a reversible step. Substance A can be acted upon by enzyme 1 to form substance B. But under certain circumstances, substance B could be converted back to substance A, and that acts to control or regulate the production of either B or A under certain conditions. We've also got an example of an irreversible step. If enzyme 2 acts upon substance B, you can see that the pathway follows one direction only, that B is converted to C, C to D, and subsequently D to E. There are only one direction that the arrows are pointing, so this is an irreversible step. Metabolic pathways can also contain alternative routes that allow steps in the pathway to be bypassed. Our alternative route is highlighted in purple, that B can act directly with enzyme 4 and bypass enzyme 2, substance C, enzyme 3 and substance D. The biochemical processes upon which life depends take the form of metabolic pathways, which fall into 2 categories. Anabolic pathways bring about the biosynthesis of complex molecules from simpler building blocks and require energy to do so. Catabolic pathways bring about the breakdown of complex molecules to simpler ones, usually releasing energy and often providing building blocks. Such pathways are closely integrated and one often depends on the other. So for example, a topic that we'll be going on to in our next sequence of work, aerobic respiration in living cells is an example of a catabolic reaction, which releases the energy needed for the synthesis of protein from amino acids, which is an example of an anabolic reaction. The diagram is just confirming the difference between these two biochemical categories, these two biochemical processes, which are anabolic reactions and catabolic reactions. So a reminder that anabolic pathways bring about the biosynthesis of complex molecules from simpler building blocks and require energy to do so. Catabolic pathways bring about the breakdown of complex molecules to simpler ones, usually releasing energy and often providing building blocks. Metabolic pathways are controlled by the presence or absence of particular enzymes and the regulation of the rate of reaction of key enzymes. At the end of this very short PowerPoint, I would ask that you evaluate your own learning against the 3 learning intentions highlighted on the screen.